Hello everyone. Welcome today. Happy Diwali and Happy New Year to all. Uh, so let's continue with the session and start discussing upon that in last session what we were doing is we were talking about ACID 330. Remember wherein we started discussion on the how an auditor has to prepare the response to the assessed risk. Okay. So, in last lecture, remember when we were discussing about the part three of the overall response to the risk, that how we prepared it, what we did differently, and the responses that we added just to show you. We added audit procedures at the assertion level to address the risk of material misstatement which arise due to either a control risk or inherent risk. And then we added some, let's say for example, what will happen if we added an amount of misstatement, we identified the misstatement, whether we need to obtain further audit evidence or not. We discussed in detail that it's a continuous process. It's not a one step one time process, but it's a continuous process. Okay. So this is something we discussed in the last lecture, wherein we discussed about practically how to create a response to the assessed risk. Okay. Now, before we proceed further, what I suggest is let's take few questions and then we can proceed further. Let's take few questions that would also help us practically to answer the questions in exam, and then on the basis of that we will take further. Okay. Okay. Let's start with some questions. Mr. Anand Pal, audit manager on statutory audit of Mountain Water and Beverages Limited, explains to his team that the auditor is required to perform risk assessment procedures to provide a basis for identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement at the financial statement and assertion levels. However, such a procedure will only include inquiries of management and not of other individuals or functions within organization. Inquiries with others within the organization will alert them and will reduce the chance of detecting fraud within the organization. Mr. Mukul, engagement partner, had a different opinion. Kindly guide the audit manager and the engagement partner with respect to the requirements and the risk assessment procedures. And your options are inquiries of management of appropriate individuals within the internal audit function, if the function exists, and of others within the entity who, in the auditor's judgment, may have information that likely to assist in identifying risk of material misstatement due to fraud. That is the option number one. Option number two is inquiring with others within the organization will alert them and will reduce the chance of detecting fraud within the organization, and hence auditor should not be within the entity, and other with other employees of with different level of authority should communicate. Third, inquiries directed toward in-house legal counsel may provide information about such as matters in litigation, compliance with laws and regulations, knowledge of fraud. However, inquiries of employees, those charged with governance and towards marketing or sales personnel should not be conducted. Fourth, if based on the response to the auditor's inquiries, it appears that there are no findings, then only inquiries of others should be conducted. So, what is the correct option here, guys? Come on. What is the correct option? So, Mr. Anand Pal, audit manager on the statutory audit of Mountain Waters and Beverages Limited, explained to his team that the auditor is required to perform risk assessment procedures. Okay. And such a procedure will include only inquiries. Such a procedure will only include inquiries of management and not of other individuals, because it will alert them and will reduce the chance of detecting fraud within the organization. So, what do you think is the correct option, guys? Come on, let's see how practically we understood the topic. Come on, guys, quickly. Okay, good, Charu. Good, Jigar. Very good. Come on, quickly, guys. Good, Salesh. Very good. Come on, guys. Very good. Good, Mufika. What else we have? Come on, guys. I have received few answers. I'm expecting more today. I'm expecting more answers. Come on. Okay. So, see, few things. Number one, when we do inquiries, let's say for example, you are preparing this particular file. Okay. Now here you will go and you will perform the inquiries with management to understand everything. Remember, we discussed about how to reach this particular place, starting point, first part. How to reach till here, till first part. And for that, we somewhere, remember we discussed about, okay, I have started from the risk assessment process, but before that, there is something I need to perform. I need to reach that particular part, start part, where, I can get the information about the business, I can understand the entity. Remember? So that particular thing, inquiries of management and appropriate individuals within the company helps me to identify to get the information within the company from the company. Okay, let's say for example, if there is a purchasing process, management might not be able to provide me everything. So for example, how an invoice is processed, okay, that information might not be available with CEO or CFO of the company. So can I go and directly say to any of the, let's say for example, Reliance CEO, can you tell me how a invoice is processed at the Reliance retail store or something like that? Geo retail store, Geo Mart store? No, because at that particular level, how the invoices are processed, something, within the entity, within the organization, other people may be able to answer to. Hence, in that case, it's always appropriate to make inquiries with the other individuals like legal counsel, like internal audit function, so that you can get additional information. Okay, now in the current case, if you see, when I say inquiries of management and of appropriate individuals within the internal audit function and of others, okay, within the entity who in auditor's judgment may have information that likely to assist identify risk of material misstatement. So that is necessary for us before we start our, the preparing the whole audit program in detail. We need to understand that what information we can gather, and for that it is necessary we should go with the different level of people within the organization. So that is correct. First option is correct. Let's say second option. Why they are incorrect? Reason because if you see in second, it says will alert them and will you reduce the chance of detecting fraud within the organization. Now you are doing inquiries for the audit, and everyone knows that audit is going to happen. Okay. So everyone is knows that auditor will come and they will perform this statutory audit for the period. There is nothing hidden from them with respect to the statutory audit. In case of forensic accounting, in case of fraud investigation assignment, there is a surprise element. But in case of statutory audit, there is no surprise element as such. When you are doing planning, because at the time of planning, everyone knows that this is the statutory auditor and he's going to perform or she's going to perform the audit. So this is something I still believe is not true. That's why I mark it as the not true. Third, inquiries towards DNO's legal counsel and auditor is fine. But however, inquiries of employees, those such with governance and marketing or sales personnel should not be conducted. This is again incorrect. This should not happen. Like for example, those such with governance will definitely give you a good oversight at how they are fulfilling the requirements. So that's why this is also incorrect. And fourth, if based on auditor's inquiries, it appears that no findings are there, then only inquiries of others will be conducted. Again, incorrect. Clear? So the correct option is A, not B, C, D. Clear? Any doubt? Let's say, for example, if I extend this particular question, okay, and I ask you this one, Mr. Anpal wants to understand what can be achieved through inquiries of others within the entity and other employees within the different level of with different level of authorities. Kindly guide. So, for example, you tell me what information you can gather from which type of employee within the organization or which department within the organization. Which information you can gather. Come on, guys. So, which information you can gather, let's say from internal audit, from in-house legal. So, if you have to summarize which information you can get from different level of department, different level of employees within the organization, then can you give some example? It is always good to have a clear idea of what information can be provided by which department. Come on, guys. Which information can be provided by which department? Any idea? Any try I would suggest. So definitely, Tanisha. So the question here is that Mr. Anand Pal, he is the statutory auditor and he's conducting an audit, okay, of a company. Now the thing is, he wants to conduct inquiries of management and other individuals within the organization in order to gather information about risk assessment. Okay, he wants to perform risk assessment. So he wants to gather information about risk of material misstatement due to fraud and error at the financial statement and the assessment level. Now you are requested to guide him what information he can achieve through inquiries with the others within the entity and others with different level of authorities in an organization. So what information he can gather from them. So for example, let's say you can go and give an example of internal audit, in-house legal counsel. So what information we should expect from there, which can help us in our risk assessment procedure. Good, Jigar, very good. So, production related information asked to product department, same with the R&D and marketing. Very good, Jigar. So, another answer is purchase department can provide PO, purchase requisition, goods receipt, and by comparing them, we can form the deviations. That is the good example of three-way match control, Charu. Very good. So, in three-way match control, we identify, we match all these things. Very good. Another answer is accounting policies, relevant industry, regulatory requirements. We can ask within the different level of department. Very good, Mufida. Come on, guys. What other information you can expect from from different departments? What type of information you can expect? Come on, guys. So this question will not only provide answer to which type of information, but will also guide you and also help you to understand that why it is necessary to make inquiries with others. Another answer is a written representation should be asked from management, and written representations are good example of other information that we require. Very good, Jigar. Okay, let us see the answer here now. So, auditor may also obtain information or a different perspective in identifying risk of material misstatement through inquiries of others and within the entity and other employees with different level of authorities. For example, inquiries directed towards those charged with governance may help the auditor to understand the environment in which the financial statements are prepared. For example, tone at the top. Inquiries of the employees involved in initiating, processing, or recording complex or unusual transactions may help auditor to evaluate the appropriateness of selection and application of certain accounting policies. Let's say, for example, fair value estimates or any other estimates like warranty estimates. If any employees are involved in, calculating warranty estimate or fair value estimate and recording them, so, if you make inquiries of those employees to understand the process, to understand the controls, to understand, the systems they are using, so we can get a good information, and from there we can identify what risk is there in that particular information. Inquiries directed toward in-house legal counsel may provide information about such as matter as litigation, compliance with laws and regulations, knowledge of fraud or suspected fraud affecting the entity, warranties, postal obligations, arrangements, and then with other business partners and contractors. So that is something in-house legal counsel can provide you. Then inquiries directed toward marketing or sales personnel may provide information about changes in entities, marketing strategies, sale trend, contractual agreement with customers. So, for example, when I say entities marketing strategy means in which market the entity strategy, doing advertising more, where the entity is doing marketing, what are the preferred marketing channels, what is the sales trend, whether it's a seasonal thing or whether it's something continuous throughout the year. So all those information we can get. If an entity has an internal audit function, inquiries with the appropriate individual within that function may provide information that is used to the auditor in obtaining an understanding of the entity and its environment, and in identifying assessing risk of material misstatement at the financial statement and the assertion level. So, for example, if you have the internal audit function, then internal audit function will definitely help you to understand how they have performed their risk assessment, how they well understand the entity, and how they have performed the kind of identification of risk process. In performing its work, the internal audit function is likely to have obtained insight into the entity's operations, business risk, and may have finding based on its work, such as identified control deficiencies or risk, that may provide valuable input to the auditor's understanding of the entity and auditor's risk assessment and other aspects. The auditor's inquiries are therefore made whether or not the auditor expects to use the work of internal audit function to modify the nature, timing, extent, and reduce the extent of the audit procedures to be performed. So, irrespective whether I want to use the work of internal audit or not, I will make queries. Inquiries of particular relevance may be about matters the internal audit function has raised with the those with governance and the outcomes of the function's own risk assessment procedures. Means if they have identified any observation during the period, then inquiries about such matters or such issues that they have identified will give you a good understanding. So this is how some inquiries can help you to obtain some kind of information. Are you clear with the answer, guys? Are you clear? Are you clear with the answer? Okay, good. So let's proceed further and see one more question. In continuation to the above question, Mr. Mukund, okay, an executive audit executive, performed a ratio analysis to compare the trends in sales. Also, he performed the volume to sales analysis to understand the price growth. Mr. Anand Pal, the audit manager, is of opinion that the analytical procedures are only required to be performed during substantive testing phase. Ratio analysis and trend analysis during the risk assessment phase are irrelevant as the base data is still unaudited. And the audit team cannot draw any comfort from the analysis drawn by the unaudited data. Mr. Mukund, being and not fully satisfied with the response of the audit manager, has reached out to you to further understand on performing analytical procedures during risk assessment phase. So you need to guide Mr. Mukund with respect to whether he can perform the analytical procedures during risk assessment phase. If yes, then why? What are the benefits? Come on, guys. What are the benefits and how he can perform the risk assessment? Why he should perform the risk assessment analytical procedures during risk assessment procedures. So my target today is to cover as many practical questions as possible because that will really help us to understand the scenario, the standards that we have seen practically in how to write an exam question from that point of view. So the question here is, guys, that whether the the analytical procedures can be used during risk assessment procedures or analytical procedures are only required to be performed during substantive testing phase, as the base data is unaudited and no reliance can be placed on or audit team cannot draw any comfort from the analysis drawn from the unaudited data. What do you think? Can he perform substantive analytical procedures or analytical procedures during risk assessment phase? What do you think, guys? Okay, very good, Tanisha, very good. It can help in understanding the whole financial statement level risk element in various parts and cross-examining the accuracy and correctness of the evidence of identified risk. Very good. What else? Come on, guys. What else? Whether analytical procedures can be performed at the risk assessment phase. If yes, then why? If no, then again reason. So see, you need to provide and understand why it is necessary to perform. If it is necessary, then give the reason why you think analytical procedures are necessary to perform at the risk assessment phase. Think whether it would be appropriate because the base data is unaudited. So the concern is that the base data is unaudited. Should we perform analytical procedures? Correct, Mufida. Risk assessment procedures include inquiries with management. But the question here is, should we include analytical procedures in risk assessment procedures? So, for example, the way he has did ratio analysis to compare the trend in sales or volume to sales analysis to understand the price trend. Come on, guys. Then I will discuss how to write an answer also in exam. Along with this question, we will understand how to write and answer in exam. Quickly, guys, take your time, but try to answer this question as you can, as much as you can, so that you can have a clear understanding of the topic. I want everyone to try for the answer so that they can have a clear understanding of the topic. Think whether it is appropriate to perform risk analytical procedures during the risk assessment phase. Sorry. Very good, Tanisha. The analytical procedures may help in identifying the degree of the risk associated with each element of the focus areas within the financial statement, and it will help in estimating the degree of risk at the whole financial statement level and the assessment level. Very good. Okay. What else? Come on, guys. Come on, quickly, guys. What else? Try to answer. Trust me. Try to think that why analytical procedures are important at the risk assessment phase. The question can come, for 5 marks in the exam. Okay. Very good, Mufida. Correct, Yutka. Very good. It helps auditor to identify the aspects which are not visibly directly with the data. Very good, Yutka. To determine materiality. Very good, Thomas. What else, guys? Why do you think analytical procedures are necessary during the risk assessment procedures? If they are not necessary, then why? Again, there could be both scenarios. Like on the other hand, it could be like, okay, now analytical procedures are not necessary at the risk assessment phase because they will not provide any comfort as the base data is unaudited or there is an other risk, with respect to that. So we need to understand, from technical point of view also that okay, do we really, get anything by performing substantive analytical procedures at the planning stage? Okay, let me show you something. We have already discussed this, but let me still show you. Remember Zomato KPI data book that we discussed, the publicly available data? Whatever here it is done, if you see, if I consider this particular thing, or if I perform this particular thing, in order to understand, the revenue for the quarters, the EBITDA for the quarters, sales for the quarters, and I can see, like to identify which sector is performing very good, like food delivery, hyper pure, quick commerce, or what is performing good. So if I perform this particular activity, am I wrong? Answer is no. Okay, rather this activity gives me a good amount of comfort over understanding the business, the entity, and the financial metrics and the performance of the company throughout the periods. Very good, Tanisha. Analytical procedures has to eliminate the unimportant areas of the audit. Okay, you can use the analytical procedures to understand which areas are critical to identify hidden unusual trends. It provides broad indication that the risk of material misstatement may exist. Okay, because it considers large data and considers all the data together. Very good, Yuka. Very good, Charu. That analytical procedures help the auditor to identify the risk, critical areas, and suspected areas. Very good. So yes, it is very very important for us to perform the analytical procedures during risk assessment stage. Let's see the answer. As per essay 315, see, whenever you are writing an answer as per the essay, okay, first of all, what you need to do is you need to quote from which provision you are referring over here. What is the provision? What is the, essay? What is the requirement that you are quoting here? So I am first quoting the essay over here. As per essay 315, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity, its environment. And on in that, the requirement is the auditor shall perform the assessment procedures to provide a basis for identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement at financial and assertion level. The risk assessment procedures shall include analytical procedures. Analytical procedures performed as risk assessment procedures may identify the aspects of the entity of which the auditor was unaware and may assist in assessing the risk of material misstatement in order to provide a basis for designing and implementing response to the assessed risk. Analytical procedures performed at the risk assessment procedure may help both financially and for non-financial information. For example, the relationship between sales and square footage of the selling space or the volume of goods sold. Kind of, analytical procedure. So first I quoted What I quoted a provision. Okay. And then I'm explaining the provision. The second part is I am explaining the provision over here. So I have to, then explain the provision, what provision is, and what is the provision about. Okay. Then again, this is the explanation part over here, that analytical procedures may help identifying the existence of unusual transactions or events and the amounts, ratios, trends that might indicate matters that have audit implications. Unusual and unexpected relationships that are affected may assist the auditor in identifying risk of material misstatement, especially risk of material misstatement due to fraud. So again, I am explaining, the reason why analytical procedure is important. So kind of, can be covered with the explanation part, explanation of the provision. This is something explanation of provision. Then comes again, further detail on this. However, when such analytical procedures are used on use data aggregated at the high level, which may be the situation that the analytical procedures performed as the risk assessment procedures. The result of those procedures only provide a broad initial indication about whether a material misstatement exists. Accordingly, in such cases, consideration of other information that have been gathered when identifying the risk of material misstatement together with the risk of analytical procedures may help the auditor in understanding and evaluating the results of analytical procedures. Means if you are performing analytical procedures during planning phase, then and if you are using data at the aggregated level or at the very big level, okay, such as entity level, high level, then in that case it may not provide you that much conclusive evidence about the risk assessment. Okay, it may only provide a broad initial indication about whether a material misstatement exists or not. But you need to use other information that has been generated, okay, that has been gathered to compare with the results of the analytical procedures. Okay. So let's say, for example, from other procedures or other inquiries, I have gathered some evidence. For example, the management told me that the sales is decreasing. Now I performed analytical procedures and I saw something reverse, opposite. The sales is increasing. Then there are two contradictory evidence available to me. Then I need to gather some more evidence to identify whether the results of the analytical procedures are appropriate or not. Then finally, I will conclude with the current example wherein I will say I will compare the provision with the current scenario. So I am comparing the provision with the current scenario and I'm concluding over here. That is, hence in the current case, Mr. Mukund can perform analytical procedures during risk assessment process. However, when such analytical procedures use data aggregated at a high level, other information gathered during the risk assessment process shall be used to corroborate the conclusions of the analytical procedures. Clear? Any doubt till now, guys? Any doubt with respect to the answer to this question? Any doubt? Did you understand the answer of this particular question? Any doubt, guys? Okay, good Salesh, good Tanisha, very good. Okay, let's see one more question. Okay, the more we will practice of the questions, the more we will get how to write an answer. Plus, there are some specific keywords, guys, that you need to focus upon when you are writing an answer. Okay, so I'll tell you one. See over here. So first of all, whenever I'm quoting any particular provision number or anything, I need to write full detail, like SA 315 with the name. If I'm writing something from the company act, okay, if I'm quoting any provision of the company's act or any other act, in that case, what I need to do is I need to write the full provision. I'll tell you how. Most people mention that, okay, what they mention is, let's say, for example, you are quoting section 143 of the company's act. Most people do is section 143 of companies act, or some people only write section 143 of the act. Okay, some people write this way, section 143 of the act, but that is incorrect way to write. I'll tell you why. Because whenever you are writing or quoting any provision, you need to start with the clause, subsection, or something like that. Or either you can write in a combined way a section number. So you can write section 143, 11 or 12, let's say. Section 143, 11 or 12, let's say for example, okay, may help you to understand. So 143.12 of Companies Act of Companies Act 2013. I need to mention the year, the full name of the act, and a section number in detail, so that the person who is reading can get a clear understanding of what I am quoting over here. Okay, so section number, subsection number, and full name of the act with the year. If it is the rules, then full name of the rules with the year. Okay, hope I'm clear. Hope I'm clear. So you need to quote full section number that is there. Full section number with the name of the act and the year of the act in detail, so that the reader can understand which provision you are referring to. And sometimes when you are referring to rules along with the section, you need to say section number this of Companies Act 2013 read with so and so rules, companies, auditors rule, whatsoever example, whatsoever rules is, okay, auditors rule 2013 or 2012, whatever it is, then read with rule number 12 or rule number 6 of companies auditors rule 2012, whatever it is. And by this way, you can, get the reader can get a good understanding of which provision you want to put. Now, the question comes is when you are not aware about subsection number or the exact rule number. Perfectly fine. You can quote section 143 at that particular point in time, whatever you remember. Okay. Or even you don't remember the section number, if you can quote directly the name of the act as per the Companies Act 2013, as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013, you can mention that. But again, in that case, there are chances that your some marks might be deducted, because mentioning and quoting section numbers, provisions are mandatory. Uh, so this is how this is, the provisions are required to be quoted, or section numbers or something, are required to be quoted. This is provision, this is explanation, and then you have a conclusion. Okay, another question that I'm getting is, after completing each essay, uh, how to solve more questions? Should we solve more questions essay wise, or should, from RTP or MTP? See, right now I'm discussing more questions. I'm discussing essay wise. Reason because you can get the understanding of the topic. But what I will suggest is, in exam, a question might be based on two, three essays together. At that particular point in time, it will be difficult for you to identify which essay will be applicable. So start, cultivating a habit of, solving questions which includes multiple essay, and at the total topic level. Like for example, standards, one full topic, questions of that one full topic. So that, what will happen is, if in exam a question is there which is covering multiple essays, you will be able to answer that. Clear? Any doubts? Any doubts? Any doubt? No? Okay. Let's continue that. I'll solve. I'll take up one more question. The question is, Mr. Subramaniam, the engagement partner, performed the risk assessment with the audit manager for the statutory audit of Ocean Waters and Beverages Limited. Once the risk assessment was done, the engagement partner and the audit manager identified high and medium risk areas and developed an audit plan to address those. Okay. So once the risk assessment was done, then identified the high and medium risk areas, the way we did in Excel. For low risk areas, the audit manager delegated the responsibility to other key engagement team members for preparing an appropriate audit plan to respond to such low risk areas. Once the entire plan was ready, the engagement partner informed everyone about the applicable financial reporting framework to the entity. Okay. So once the plan was ready, okay, the engagement partner informed everyone about the appropriate financial reporting framework of applicable to the entity. Mr. Shashank, one of the audit executives, requested the audit partner to share the methodology and process followed by the engagement partner and manager to identify high medium risk areas. However, engagement partner was of opinion that the identification and assessment of the risk is very complex and challenging process. The procedure is followed and assumptions taken during the assessment are required to be kept confidential. Comment on this in the light of standards on auditing issued by ICAI. Now, first of all, in these kind of scenarios where you don't have, clear cut question available, like on what thing you need to comment, what is the problem here, what is the, what we need to focus upon. Identify what are the things which are done, that has been done by someone in the question. So in question, it will be given, okay, this person has done this person has done this person has done this. Now identify who has done what, and on the basis of on the basis of that, think whether that is appropriate or not. So let's give a try. Okay, read the question once again, take your time, but then try to answer what is the problem here. Come on, guys. Read the question once again. Take your time and understand the question. Take 2 minutes to read the question. Once you are done with the reading, then understand, then try to identify what is wrong here, what went wrong, kind of a risk, or what was something not appropriate. You feel that it might not be appropriate in the current scenario. Come on, guys. You feel that might not be appropriate in the current scenario. What is wrong here? Come on, guys, quickly. Focus on who has done what. Okay. And on the basis of that, you can try to answer the question. What you feel is not appropriate over here and why? I don't want, answer with the provision and correct answers. No. Try to answer logically. What you think should have been done and in which area. Keep these standards aside. Keep SA 315, 330, everything aside. Logically think what you should have done and what is, something not appropriate in this scenario. Very good, Tanisha. Very good. Come on, guys. I have received one answer and that is really appropriate. Take your time, read the question, and try to understand what is not appropriate in the current scenario. Come on, guys. Any try any something try to answer the question. What do you feel is not appropriate over here? Anyone? Should I provide you the answer? Should I disclose the answer to this question? Or anyone wants to try? Should I disclose the answer to this question or anyone wants to try? Yes, no, something. Yes, no. Okay. Let's then discuss the answer of this particular question. So, first of all, Mr. Subramanian, the engagement partner, performed the risk assessment with the audit manager for the statutory audit. Okay. So, initially, only the engagement partner and the audit manager were involved in the risk assessment procedures. Perfectly fine. Once the risk assessment was done, partner and audit manager identified the high and medium risk areas. So they did not identify the low risk areas, okay, and develop an audit plan to address those risks. Like those means high and medium risk. For low risk areas, the audit manager delegated responsibility to other key team engagement or team members for preparing an appropriate audit plan to respond such list. Perfectly fine. So for rest of the areas, he said to his team members, you identify what procedures you need to perform. As an experience, he gave it. Perfectly fine. Once the entire plan was ready, the engagement partner informed everyone about the applicable financial reporting framework. Now, this is something a problem. This particular part is the problem for me. I'll highlight for you guys this particular part. The first problem. Why? Okay, I'll tell you this. There is a problem. Now you think why there is a problem. Why do you think this is a problem? What is not appropriate here? I'm saying there is something wrong in this. But what? At least try to identify that. I have given you an area where I think I know there is something wrong, but you need to identify what is wrong. Come on, guys. Okay, Mufida, good. What else? Very good, Mohammed. Very good. Excellent. Okay, Charu. Very good. One thing, this everyone means everyone in the engagement team. This is everyone in the engagement team. Very good, Tanisha. Good, Geeta. Very good. Okay, let's go back and you tell me the name of the assertions. balance sheet assertions or P&L assertions. Which are the balance sheet assertions? Let's go with the balance sheet one. The answer to this question somewhere lies with the assertions. Come on, guys. So tell me the name of balance sheet assertions. Which are the balance sheet assertions, guys? Rights and obligations, valuations, completeness. Rights and obligation, valuation, existence, completeness, and what? There is one more, presentation and disclosure. Okay. Now, presentation and disclosure. That is that when we identify a risk, we identify whether there is any impact of that risk on the presentation and disclosure also. Correct? So when we identify a risk, we identify whether there is any impact of the risk on presentation and disclosure. That is for sure. Okay. Now, when we are able to identify, let's say for example, if there is a risk that is, warranty is not appropriately reported in the financial statement. But to say that there is a risk to the presentation and disclosure, I need to have a clarity what is the requirement of presentation and disclosure. Before I can comment anything on any risk, whether the risk has the impact on the presentation disclosure session, I need to have a clarity that what presentation and disclosure framework or the requirements are applicable to me. The first part of that is that by understanding the entity, leave the audit plan ahead. Leave the audit plan as of now. What we discussed in the last lecture itself, while understanding the entity, okay, we need to first understand, okay, the financial reporting framework, relevant industry, regulatory, other alternative factors that impact the financial reporting and applicable financial reporting framework. So we discussed that the applicable financial reporting framework is something we need to understand. Okay, when I need to gather the understanding about the entity. Once I gather the understanding, I will prepare the audit plan subsequently. So, in order, the engagement partner does not disclose the applicable financial reporting framework to everyone. Okay, he disclosed after finalizing the plan. Then how can I consider that that was included in the audit plan? How can you identify the risk at the assertion level of presentation and disclosure when you are not aware what financial reporting framework is applicable? Are you getting my point? Okay, then subsequently, Mr. Shashank, one of the audit executive, requested the audit partner to share the methodology and process followed by the engagement partner and manager to identify high and medium risk areas. Engagement partner was the opinion that the identification is very complex process and challenging process. The procedure is followed and assumptions taken during the risk assessment are required to be kept confidential. Now, this is something I feel is an issue. This is something I feel as an issue. So you tell me, guys, what issue do you feel with this particular line? What is the issue that you feel with this particular line? Come on, guys. Come on, guys. What problem do you feel with this line? What problem do you feel with this particular line? Good, Geeta. Very good, Mohammed. What else? What else, guys? What else? What issue do you think it's here? Okay, I'll tell you. See, when the procedures are followed, okay, they are required to document the procedure, risk assessment procedure, the assumptions taken, and everything. Now, if I say I'll not share with the team member that procedure, then how the team member are going to come or going to know about, come to know about the high risk areas and why they are high risk. Let's say, for example, tomorrow, whatever assumptions or whatever process is followed, okay, if I will not share with the engagement team member, then how the engagement team member will come to know that what is the high risk. Let's say tomorrow they identify something, okay, in their area while testing, but they don't have the knowledge why this area was marked high. Then let's say, in order to mark any area as a high risk area, you need to identify something. Okay, why do you feel that's a high risk? And if you'll not share that, the procedure, the assumptions taken, that why do you think this is a high risk area, this is the medium risk area, then how the person is, you are expecting a person to test that area when you yourself are not telling him what is included and why have made this area as a high risk area. So that is not something appropriate over here. Are you getting? So I need to tell my team members, I need to tell the engagement team members, okay, this is the reason why I think this is a high risk area. And while testing, please focus on these areas. Are you getting my point? Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? No? Let us see answer. Essay 315, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. The engagement partner and other key engagement team members shall discuss the susceptibility of entities' financial statement to material misstatement and application of the applicable financial reporting to framework to the entity's facts and circumstances. The engagement partner shall determine which matters are required to be communicated to the engagement team members and not involved in the discussion. Means if they are not involved in the discussion, then what information to pass on? The discussion among the team member about the susceptibility of the entity's financial statement to material misstatement includes, provide an opportunity for more experienced team members, including engagement partner, to share their insights based on the knowledge of the entity, allows the engagement team members, okay, to exchange information about the business risk to which the entity is subject to, and how and where the financial statement might be susceptible to material misstatement due to fraud or error. This is benefits of discussion within the engagement team member. Assist the engagement team members to gain a better understanding of the potential for the material misstatement of the financial statement in specific areas assigned to them, and to understand how results of the audit procedures they perform may affect the other aspects of the audit, including, let's say I identified a fraud, then this fraud will impact my other audit procedures also. Then provides a basis upon which engagement team members communicate and share new information obtained throughout the audit. Also, if you see, as per SA 240, provides further that the requirement and guidance in relation to the discussion among the team member about the risk of fraud, okay, is not always necessary or practical for discussion to include all team members in single discussion. Okay, nor it is necessary for all team members of the engagement team to be informed of all the decisions reached in the discussions. So it says that it is not necessary to inform about all the decisions, but the engagement partner may discuss matters with the key members of the engagement team, including, if considered appropriate, with specialists and those responsible for the audit of components, while delegating discussions with others, taking on account of the extent of communication considered necessary throughout the engagement team. Hence, in the current case, engagement partner and manager are not correct by not involving key team members in discussing the susceptibility of the entity's financial statement to material misstatement and the application of applicable financial reporting framework to the entity's phantom circumstances. Clear with the answer, guys? Any doubt? Any doubt? Are you clear with the answer? So whatever we understood, whatever we learn during the practical scenario, we are just writing in a theoretical way over here. The same thing is being written in theoretical way over here, whatever we discussed during practical Excel file. If you see, this is nothing different from that. Nothing different. Clear, guys? Any doubt? No? Okay. Let me proceed further to the next question. KPL and company were appointed as a statutory auditor by Ocean Water Limited. Ocean Water was a wholly owned subsidiary of Ocean Waters and Beverages Limited. The appointment of the statutory auditor was performed at the request and suggestion of the parent company. While understanding the entity and performing the risk assessment procedures, the audit team decided to obtain an understanding of relevant industry, regulatory, and other external factors, including the applicable financial reporting framework, nature of the entity, including operations, ownership, governance structure, type of investment that the entity is making, and the way the entity is structured and financed, measurement and review of the entity's financial performance. However, statutory auditor decided to scope out understanding of the entity's selection and application of accounting policies, including the reasons for changes thereto and objectives and strategies. This was done as the selection and application of accounting policies and objectives and strategies are carried through parent entity. And reviewing these at the parent entity will be sufficient. Kindly guide the audit manager and partner with respect to the requirement of understanding of the entity and its environment, including entity's internal control by selecting an appropriate option from below. But before we go to the option, you read this particular question and tell me what is not appropriate over here. Then we'll go to the answers. First, read the question and tell me what is not appropriate. Come on, guys. What do you feel is not appropriate? These kind of questions can come in exam for 5 months, okay, where this kind of information is given and you are required to ask, required to answer the question. I can just, add one line. Kindly, comment in the light of, relevant standards on auditing issued by ICAI. In that case, you should be able to identify what is going wrong over here. Come on, guys. Focus on what is happening in the question, in the scenario, and what is not happening appropriately from that. What is happening and what is not happening. Okay, Geeta, very good. Good, Mufida. This one is pretty simple, guys. Trust me, this one is pretty simple. Come on, guys, come on. At least try to give an answer so that, at least what will happen is you start processing the question in your mind. Okay, I don't care whether the answer is right or wrong. I want your attempt to the answer. That's it. Very good, Mohammed. Absolutely correct. Come on, guys, quickly. Uh, Good attempt, Tanisha. Very good. Okay, let me discuss the options over here. The options are A. The auditor shall obtain an understanding of the entity's selection and applicable accounting policies, including the reasons for changes thereto and the entity's objective and strategies and those related business risks that may result in risk of material misstatement. When the auditor is appointed at the request of the parent entity, then the auditor shall not obtain understanding of the entity's selection and application of accounting policies, including reasons for changes thereto and strategies, and those related to the business risk that may result in risk of material misstatement. The entity's conduct and the entity conducts its business in the context of the industry, regulatory, and other internal and external factors. To respond to these factors, the entity's management or those charged with governance define objectives, which are overall plan for the entity. Hence, it is the responsibility of the management to gather an understanding of the entity's selection and application of accounting policies, including reasons for changes thereto, and strategies and those related business risks that may result in risk of material misstatement. Business risk is broader than the risk of material misstatement on the financial statement. Though it is included in the later, business risk may arise from the change or complexity. Hence, the auditor should not focus on the entity's selection and application of accounting policies, including reasons for changes thereto, and entity's objective and strategies, and those related business risks that may result in the risk of material misstatement. So, what is the correct option, guys, over here? What do you think is the correct option over here? Now you have options in front of you. You need to select one option. This thing I have discussed in my previous lecture, in the last lecture, wherein we discussed about this particular topic. Very good, Mufida. Very good, Tanisha. Very good, Mohammed. Come on, guys. Come on, guys, quickly. What do you think the issue over here? What do you think? The option over here. Which option is correct? Okay, I'll tell you. So the correct option is option A. The reason because there are two things. Number one, selection and understanding of application of accounting policies. Remember, I gave an example of POCM. Okay, let's say there is a wholesale trader. Okay, a company dealing into goods. Now, what if they apply accounting policy of recognizing revenue as a POCM instead of normal Ind AS 115 or something like that? Do you think is it appropriate? Answer is no, because that is POCM is for the construction and the large project contracts. Now, if a wholesale trading will apply POCM, then it will result in inaccurate recording of revenue. That's why it is necessary for the entities. It is necessary for us to understand the entity's selection and application of accounting policies. Another example, let's say, for example, a warranty. Now, company is giving 3 years warranty for all of its product, but while recording the warranty estimate, the company is only recording the warranty estimate for the first year. Again, the selection and application of accounting policy regarding warranty is not appropriate because the warranty period given to the customer is 3 years and you are recording the warranty cost only for the 1 year. Why not for the rest of the 2 years you are recording? Means you are not applying the entities, you are not applying accounting policy or your the selection of the accounting policy is not appropriate. That's why we need to understand whether the selection of the accounting policy is appropriate or not. And for that, we need to obtain an understanding of that. Are you getting my point? So, first, obtain an understanding of the accounting policies, entity selection and application of accounting policies, including the reasons for the changes. Like, let's say, for example, last year, warranty was accrued for the 3 years. Warranty cost was booked for the 3 years. Now they have shifted to only 1 year to reduce the warranty cost in the financial statement and to show good bottom line. So you need to understand why there is a change in accounting policy. What is the reason to have a change? And accordingly, the auditor needs to identify is there any chance of risk of material misstatement due to fraud or error? If yes, then you need to identify, then you need to assess that. Clear? So the correct option here is just a minute. Is A. The correct option over here is A. Any doubt? Any question, guys? Sorry, the application got closed. Any doubt? Any question? Just give me a minute. Let me share my screen again. Okay. Clear? If no doubts, then guys, what I suggest is let's take a quick 10-minute break, and after the break, we'll come back and solve more questions because I want to cover more practical side of this particular area. Very, very important part. Okay, let's take a quick 10-minute break. So let's take one more question and then we, let's see for the more practice. Okay. Anandpal and Company were appointed as the auditor of Highways and Ways Limited for financial year 1920. This was their first year audit assignment for Highways and Ways Limited. Before this, Highways and Ways Limited auditor was Satyapal and Company, chartered accountants. Highways and Ways Limited, one division was involved in highway projects and another major division was involved in build, operate, transfer projects. Anandpal and Company decided that Mr. Surya Pal would be the engagement partner, okay, for this audit. Post meeting with the management and those charged with governance regarding the understanding the entity and its operation, Mr. Surya Pal decided to identify the risk of material misstatement with respect to the revenue recognition of BOT division. Okay. You are required to guide Mr. Satyapal with respect to the risk assessment procedures for identification of risk of material misstatement in revenue recognition process. So you need to tell Mr. Suryapal, that what is the requirement when it comes to the revenue recognition process and risk of material misstatement in revenue. How Mr. Suryapal can, identify, and perform risk assessment procedures or identify risk of material misstatement in the revenue recognition process. So you need to guide Mr. Suryapal on that. So if you want to answer this question, I would say keep aside the standard, logically think if you want to perform a risk assessment procedure, what you will do. If I give you a particular process, let's say revenue process, now perform the risk assessment procedures, what you will do. We have already performed this thing practically. Trust me, you need to just answer that. Okay, how you can perform the risk assessment procedure in a particular process. Let's say revenue. In our example, we did some purchase and invoicing. You need to just keep that in words. Whatever we have done practically, you have to keep it only, in words now. Come on, guys. Whatever we have done, we have now to keep in words. That's it. That's the requirement over here. Nothing else. Come on, guys. So we have already performed this exercise. Now we have to, only write that exercise in words. That's it. There is no difference in whatever we have performed and what we have to write. Trust me. Come on, guys, quickly.
There is no difference than what we have performed in practical in Excel file than what you have to write over here. So, but I want in your words that answer. Very good, Charu. Very, very good. Only one answer till now. I am expecting more answers. More. Quickly, guys, quickly. In this question, I will also guide you with respect to the keywords and how to keep the answer appropriate. What if you change some words and what will happen with that? So I'll give you some good examples of it also. So all these things will help you to write an answer in exam. See, whatever we have learned practically, we need to just convert that into words. That's it. If you're clear with the practical concept, now I will tell you how to convert that in words. Okay, let's start. Let's go with the answer. Number one, whenever I'll start writing the answer, I will code whatever provision, whatever essay, whatever regulation it is. So, for example, as per essay 315, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. The auditor's responsibility is to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement in the financial statement through understanding the entity and its environment. The auditor shall perform risk assessment procedures to provide a base for the identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement at the financial statement and at the assertions level. Okay. Now, if I have to mark your keywords, number one is this: risk of material misstatement in the financial statement. You can keep that as a keyword that you have to quote. Do not write only risk. People may write, the auditor's responsibility is to identify risk. No. Risk where? Which risk? Which type of risk we are talking about? Okay, risk can be material, can be non-material, can be financial, non-financial, business risk. A lot of things are there. Always keep your things clear. Risk of material misstatement in the financial statement. Okay. Second, through understanding the entity and its environment, the auditor shall perform risk assessment procedures to provide a basis for identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement at financial statement and assertion level. Again, basis for identification and assessment. Identification and assessment of, again, risk of material misstatement. I should not write this as a only risk. People at times, try to write this particular term. I'll tell you how. Some people write risk of material misstatement as, or risk at the risk of material misstatement at the financial statement level. Okay, most of people try to write this particular thing as risk in financial statement, or they write only risk, or they write risk as whole, or risk at top level. I have seen this also. All these are incorrect. All these are incorrect. Risk in FS, risk as whole, risk at the top. All these are incorrect. You should write risk of material misstatement as it is. Risk of material misstatement in financial statement. Okay. Or at the financial statement level. Very important part it is. You need to write that particular keyword as it is. So it is talking about risk, which is about material misstatement. Risk which relate to material misstatement at the financial statement and at the assertion level. Okay, so these are the keywords that we need to keep in mind while writing the answer. Then auditor shall identify and assess the risk of material misstatement. Now, most of the people only write identify. Okay. Do not only mention identify. Always use this particular term. Identify and assess. Identifying and assessing. There is a difference between both. Identifying means you only identify there is a risk of inaccurate posting of invoices. Assessing means assessing whether the risk is high, medium, or low. So identifying is only you are identifying what could go wrong. But whether that is a high risk, low risk, medium risk, that is controls that relate to the risk, and by considering the classes of transaction, account balance, and disclosure in the financial statement. This is nothing but what we did. We obtained an understanding of the entity. Okay, like what could go wrong. For example, in your journey to Goa, what could go wrong? So we were obtaining an understanding what could go wrong. To identify the risk. We identified the relevant control, including the relevant control, what controls you have, like car surveys, tire checking, and all that stuff. Okay, remember? All these things were there. So we were identifying the entity, its environment, including the relevant controls related to the risk. Now that's one very important part, relate to the risk. In our sheet, if I show you, we have mapped everything in relation to the risk. So the controls over here are in relation to the risk. The substantive procedures are in relation to the risk. That relates to the risk. It is not like that this is for all the risk. No, this control is for specific risk. This control is addressing specific risk. So that is what we are trying to say, that we have identified the risk throughout the process of obtaining an understanding of the entity and its environment, including internal network issue. Uh, Let me share again. Am I audible, guys? Now, Ashokji, am I audible? Okay, thank you. So what I was talking about here is that assess the identified risk and evaluate whether they relate more pervasively to the financial statement as a whole or potentially affect many assertions. So you need to identify whether the risk is related to the financial statement as a more or what. Okay. Then what is the next is that relate that identified risk to what could go wrong at the assertion level that we did in Excel, taking account of the relevant controls to the auditor that the auditor intend to test. Relate the risk to the relate the identified risk to what could go wrong at the assertion level. Then consider the likelihood of the misstatement, including the possibility of multiple misstatement, and whether the potential misstatement is of magnitude that could result in a material misstatement. Same way, likelihood of misstatement and magnitude that we need to consider. Okay. So, in the current case, Mr. Suryapal wants to perform a risk assessment procedure with respect to the identification of risk of material misstatement and revenue recognition, and for that, he should identify the risk in the revenue recognition process by obtaining an understanding of the entity, its environment, including the relevant controls that relate to the process, and by considering the disclosure or revenue recognition in the financial statement. Also, he should assess the identified risk and relate the identified risk to what could go wrong at the assertion level by taking account of relevant controls that the auditor intend to test. Also, he needs to consider the likelihood of misstatement, including the possible of multiple misstatement in the revenue recognition process, and whether the potential misstatement is of magnitude that could result in material misstatement. So this is how the answer is. What you have done in a descriptive way. This is the only, we are talking about risk assessment procedure, kind of, like how to identify the risk. See, what is the question? Question is that guide Mr. Surya Pal with respect to risk assessment procedure for identification of risk of material misstatement. Now, whatever process it is, I am talking about risk assessment procedure for identification of risk of material misstatement. How you can identify the risk of material misstatement. What you need to do in order to identify the risk of material misstatement, and that is what it is written over here. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? No? Okay, let me proceed further then. One more question. Sorry. One more question. Okay, just a minute. Let me zoom out a bit. Okay, we'll consider one by one. Yeah. So the question is, while designing the response to the address risk of material misstatement in the existence and completeness of the inventory, the audit team decided to perform test count on sample basis. For the same, while attending the physical count, the audit team decided to perform test count by tracing the items selected from management's counts record to the physical inventory and tracing items selected from the physical inventory to the management count records. We generally call this procedure as a flow to sheet, sheet to flow in inventory count. The audit team asked management to provide copies of the management completed physical inventory count, which, while assisting them in performing the subsequent procedures required to determine whether inventory records actually accurately reflect the actual inventory counts. Okay. Then, however, management contended that the auditor is allowed to attain physical inventory count, but they are not allowed to perform any other procedure during physical count. However, management agreed to share the copies of management completed physical inventory count. Then, when inquired from the management regarding the denial to the auditor for performing the additional audit procedures along with attending the inventory count, the management explained that the inventory consists of very unstable chemicals, inflammable gases, which require handling with skill and care. Any carelessness in handling the inventory can result in catastrophe. As a result, due to safety standards and policies, the management cannot allow the auditor to perform additional audit procedures. Kindly guide the audit team in the current scenario regarding number one, impact of the management denial to perform audit procedure to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding existence and completeness of the inventory. Okay, that is the first part that we need to answer. Okay, that is the first part we need to answer. And answer question is impact of management denial to perform audit procedure to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding existence and completeness of inventory. See, now you need to understand what we are talking about is auditor's responsibility with respect to obtaining sufficient and appropriate audit procedures. Now, if I have to simplify this question, they wanted to perform physical count, but they were not able to perform physical count. Auditor wanted to perform physical count, but they were not able to perform physical count. Okay, because of the nature of the inventory. Now, assume yourself on their position. Assume yourself on their position. Now think of that, okay, if the auditors are not able to perform physical inventory count, okay, because of the XYZ reason, what you would have done? What is your responsibility as an auditor in that case? What is your responsibility as an auditor in that case? Uh, the reason why Charu here you think the answers appear to be similar because we are only discussing one particular topic. But when we will, let's say for example in coming lectures, when we will solve kind of MTP, RTP, you will be able to see a distinguishing, kind of, areas that you can easily identify. This is particular to this topic. This is particular to this topic. Now, we are currently discussing from one particular topic. That's why, almost all answers will, appear similar and on the same line because the topic is same. And that's the beauty. So, see, same topic will feel, give you a feel that, okay, answers are similar because one and only the one thing we are repeating again and again. When it comes SA 315, we are repeating the auditor's responsibility to perform risk assessment procedures and understanding of entity, its environment, including internal controls. But when we talk about SA 330, we talk about auditor's responsibility to respond the assess risk of material misstatement. Now, in this question, auditor is not able to perform, okay, audit procedures. What you will do? Very good, Yukta. Very good. Auditor is not able to, physically verify the inventory. What you would do in place of that auditor, what you would perform? Very good, Mohammed. Practical scenario, let's say if you are not able to perform inventory count, what you will do? Because of the nature of the inventory, you are not able to perform inventory count. Management is denying, okay, please do not perform inventory count. We cannot allow you. Very good, Charu. So, absolutely correct, guys. Now, I have come to a topic of SA 330 again. What is SA 330 talks about? SA 330 says that auditor's responsibility is to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence about the assessed risk of material misstatement through designing, implementing appropriate response to those risks. Okay, I'll take this particular one, copy it, and I'll paste it below so that we can discuss for our example. Inventory one. Okay, now this is the scenario. Now, objective of the auditor is to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Now, in our case, auditor needs to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding physical existence of inventory. Okay, how he can obtain that? Okay, so physical existence of an inventory is a risk of material misstatement. Again, why I am talking about physical existence of inventory? Because this is a risk of material misstatement that I am talking about. Risk that the inventory might not be physically available or physically present. So this is a risk of material misstatement for me. Now, objective of the auditor is to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence about the assessed risk of material misstatement. This is the assessed one, means I have already assessed that this is high risk or medium. Okay, high or medium, whatever I have assessed. Okay, now, and how can I obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence? By designing and implementing appropriate responses. Now, the appropriate response for this kind of area, physical existence is not there of the inventory for this particular risk, could be physical count. Could be physical count. But due to management restriction, this is not possible. Because I have a management restriction. Now, if this is not possible, then I need to consider alternate appropriate response. When I say response, I am saying about audit procedure. I am saying audit procedure or any other procedure that will help me to gather sufficient and appropriate audit evidence against, or in relate to that particular risk of material misstatement. So I need to design alternate appropriate response for this particular area, which could include management inspection of management count records. Plus, I could, hire specialist, audit expert for count. If management is not allowing me, I can hire an expert to count the inventory on behalf of me because he might be expert in counting such chemicals. So, alternate appropriate response, or I can inspect, I do an inspection of the management count records that will give me some evidence. But at the end, I need to have sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. That is my responsibility. In the same case, in this also, impact of management denial to perform audit procedure to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence regarding existence and completeness of inventory. Then, auditor's objective is to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. In this case, if auditor is not able to perform, he needs to perform alternate audit procedures in order to create a response to the assessed risk so that he can gather the sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Are you getting the answer what I'm saying? What is the role of auditor here? The role of auditor is do something different to gather sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. That is my essay 330. You have to create response. You have to create one or another response to those risks of material misstatement which are already identified. Okay, so that you can gather sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. I will not discuss the answer of this question as of now because it includes my essay 501 also that I'm yet to cover. And when I will cover essay 501 at that time, we will revisit this particular question again. But trust me, the answer won't change. Okay. The second part is again, we will discuss later on because it contains some other options also, some other areas also that we are yet to discuss. Okay. Clear with the answer, guys? Any doubts? Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? No? No doubts? Okay, if no further doubts, then let's take up one more question. Okay, let's take one more question. Mr. Manan, a new joiner in the audit team as an audit executive, was entrusted with the task of gathering an understanding of the industry in which the company was operating. However, Mr. Manan was not sure where to start and what to look for. Kindly guide Mr. Manan with respect to obtaining an understanding of the relevant industry of the entity along with its environment, including entity's internal control at the start of the audit. Okay, so you need to guide Mr. Manan with respect to understanding the entity, okay, relevant industry of the entity along with its environment. So, what things he needs to understand when he needs to understand, he wants to look for the industry. So, some factors, some areas, something with relevant to the industry part. If he wants to understand the industry, what he should look for. Kindly guide Mr. Manan with respect to obtaining an understanding of the relevant industry of the entity along with its environment, including entity's internal control at the start of the audit. Come on, guys. Few examples that could, help to understand the industry in which the company is operating. Few examples to understand the industry in which the company is operating. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. I'm still waiting for your answer. What are some factors that you think could be helpful, to understand the industry? Rules, regulations applicable to the industry and nature of business. Good, Charu. Very good. Business model, type of customer, legal. Good, Mohammed. Very good. What else? I want to understand the industry, about the industry, what things I should focus upon. Pretty simple. Pretty simple, guys. Trust me. What else do you think could be helpful for Mr. Manan here to understand the industry? Okay. Good Mufida, very good. Good Edukondalu, very good. Good Manoj, very good. Okay, let us see the answer. So you all guys are correct. Let us see the answer. As per SA 315, identifying assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment, the auditor shall obtain an understanding of the relevant industry, regulatory, and other external factors, including the applicable financial reporting framework. The relevant industry factors include industry conditions such as competitive environment, supplier, customer relationship, technological development, and examples of the matter which may be considered are the market competition, including demand, capacity, price competition, cyclical or seasonal activity, product related to the entity's product, technology relating to the entity's product, and energy supply and cost. So these are certain factors which could help understand the industry. Certain examples, not the only examples, but certain examples. Now, when I say certain examples, there could be more, like the way you have answered, okay. But these are certain examples that is there, suggested one. Clear? Any doubts, guys? Any doubt? Clear? Any doubt? No? Okay. If no further doubts, then let us see, some more questions on this particular topic itself, because it's a very important topic. And, I want to discuss in detail. So let us see if we can, get some more questions on this to discuss. Just a minute. Okay. Let us see one more question. Ariant Limited was engaged in the business of owning and managing hotels and resorts, selling tourism packages, and performing airline bookings for the corporate and individuals. It appointed Upadhyay and Company as the statutory auditor for financial year 2021-22. While planning the audit team decided that the risk of improper revenue recognition from hotel business should not be treated as a fraud risk. Okay. This conclusion was based on the assessment of earlier years, wherein no fraud was identified in the revenue recognized from such business. While testing the internal financial controls over the process of revenue recognition, it was identified that the controls are not properly designed to mitigate the risk of fraud and the risk of improper revenue recognition. As a result, the audit team decided to perform additional substantive testing. However, the audit team still were to the conclusion that there is no risk of fraud in revenue recognition. During the course of substantive testing, it was identified that the management did not account for revenue received from corporate booking amounting to 35 crores. These amounts were partially received in the company's bank account and partially received in the CFO's personal account. The amount received in the bank account of the company were disclosed as the advance received against the future bookings. In the light of above scenario, kindly guide the statutory auditors with respect to their responsibility relating to the fraud in an audit of financial statement. Again, this is something practically you know the answer, just you need to write into the words. Okay, practically you know the answer of this particular question. Trust me. That in this scenario, what is the scenario here is that here there is a risk. What team is saying, that audit team is that the audit team decided that the risk of improper revenue recognition from the hotel business should not be treated as a fraud risk. Conclusion was based on the assessment of earlier years, where no fraud was identified in revenue recorded. Testing the internal controls, financial controls over processes of revenue recognition, it was identified that the controls are not properly designed to mitigate the fraud risk. Okay, and risk of improper. So they are not properly designed. And the audit team decided to perform additional substantive testing. Still, audit team says that no fraud risk in revenue recognition. But they identified during substantive, they identified that management did not account for the revenue received from the corporate booking amounting to 35 CR. Partial amounts were received in company's bank account and partial in CFO's personal account. Now, what you will say on this particular area? What you will say on this particular issue? If I ask you, comment on this. Comment on the audit team's assessment of the risk of material misstatement from improper revenue recognition. And this is the same what we discussed practically over here. I just took an example of the vendor. 5 unauthorized invoices. Earlier I was saying low, everything is fine. But in substantive, I got 5 unauthorized fake invoices. I was saying there was no fraud earlier in unauthorized entry. I was saying low. I was saying controls are okay, fine, perfectly fine. There is no issue in the controls. But for the testing, when I tested, I found something which, was opposite to my assessment. Something similar here. We have practically seen this. We have practically discussed this. I want you to comment on this particular scenario. What is not appropriately done by the audit team and what audit team should do? So two things, two questions I'm asking. One, what was wrong here by audit team? Second, what audit team should do now? If you can answer these two questions, you are already answering the required answer for the question. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. These two questions you need to answer. What was not done appropriately and what is done, what now they should do. Come on, guys. Now, what was done wrong by the audit team here? First question, what was done wrong by the audit team here? Number two, what audit team should do now after identifying all these things? If you can answer these two questions, trust me, you are almost answering the question, the answer that is required here. Very good, Charu. Very good. Very good, Mohammed. Absolutely correct. Very good. You guys are already answering, which is, that is required. Very good. Very good. Come on, guys. Take some time, but write the answer that is there for these two questions, and we will discuss the answer that is given. And this is question from the RTP. Okay, this is RTP question which is available. I think this is one. Wait, just a minute. So this is November 22 RTP. You can refer question number 13 in November 22 RTP. But having said that, these kind of questions can come in exam easily, on this particular topic, risk assessment and internal control. Some people might have a doubt that it is from the old course. So the topic is same, things are same. Come on, guys. Try to answer. Basically, think on these two parts. What was wrong? What wrong was done by the audit team? Now, what they should do now? What they should do now? If you can answer these two questions, trust me, you will be able to provide the whole answer that is required. 50 marks, I think somewhere will be, based on the standard, 50 to 55 marks only. All these standards together. Half of your paper can come from these particular, topics. And trust me, SA 315, SA 330, which includes understanding the entity, risk assessment, internal controls, are the base for the audit. Base, trust me, that's the base for the audit. A lot of times, if let's say, for example, you have a specific question on any of the area, there are high chances that it will cover the reference of 315 or 330. Because these are the base which says that to perform the risk assessment, 315 and 330 says that, okay, now you perform the risk assessment, now design the audit procedures. So whatever you do based on these two. Come on, guys, quickly. I'll give you 2 minutes more. Try to answer this question. Trust me, it will build up your understanding of the topic. The more you will practice, the more you will understand how to write in exam. Understanding one part, writing in exam another part. That's why I am focusing on the practical questions more, so that you can write. Like, the more you will try to give an answer, the more you will understand where you are going wrong, what you should give more in your answer, what is something that you are missing in your answer, so that once you understand that particular area, that what you are missing in your answer, you can prepare for that, and you can easily write answers in exam, that also. Okay, Mufita, good, very good. Okay, let us see the answer to this particular question. What was wrong done by the audit team? What audit team should do now? These two things we need to focus upon. And why these two things? If you see, the question says that, in light of the above scenario, kindly guide the statutory auditor with respect to the responsibility relating to fraud in audit of financial statement. Now, when I say that kindly guide the auditors with respect to the responsibility, when I say responsibility and guiding, it's something, first highlighting them what they have done wrong. Second, now highlighting them what they can do now, like what they should do now. So that's why it's, I bifurcated the question in two parts. Usually it is written that kindly guide the statutory auditor with respect to their responsibility. But when I say responsibility, it includes what they have done wrong. First, highlighting them, okay, you did this wrong. Your responsibility was to do that, but you did this. That is wrong. Now, if your responsibility was to do that, now do that. That what you should do now in future or going forward. Okay. So let me discuss the answer of this particular question. Just a minute. As I said, whenever I will start the answer, I will make sure I refer or I quote the required provision. So for me, as per SA 240, because I'm talking about the fraud also, as per SA 240, the auditor's responsibility relating to the fraud in an audit of financial statement. And as per SA 315, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. Okay, two things. SA 315 and SA 240. Two things I'm putting over here because one, I'm talking about fraud, another, I'm talking about risk of material misstatement. So, what it says that the auditor shall identify and assess the risk of material misstatement due to fraud at the financial statement level and at the assertion level for the classes of transaction, account balances, and disclosures. When identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement due to fraud, the auditor shall, based on the presumption that there are risks of fraud in revenue recognition, evaluate which type of revenue transaction or assertion gives rise to such risk. Remember in the lecture when we were discussing about, fraud. If I go back to particular lecture when I was discussing about fraud, we discussed about two type of risk that were presumptive, like to be presumed that they are there. By default, they are there. Just a minute. Let me go through that particular topic. Let me open those notes so that we can easily discuss. Yeah, here it is. So while discussing chapter 2, we discussed something about SA 240. And in SA 240, we discussed about two type of fraud risk. Risk of fraud in revenue recognition. Remember something we discussed about risk of fraud in revenue recognition and risk of fraud, risk of management override of controls. These were the two risks that we discussed, that these are the presumed risks. Presumed risk of fraud means I will assume that they are present from day one. I will assume that they are present from day one. Risk of fraud in revenue recognition. In our current scenario, there was a revenue recognition, correct? Improper revenue recognition. I have to assume from day one there is a risk of fraud in revenue recognition. The presumption should be there, but audit team did not keep the presumption that there is risk of fraud in revenue recognition. Okay. In accordance with SA 240, the auditor's responsibility relating to fraud in a financial statement, and 330, the response to the assessed risk. Okay. Now I'm quoting off SA 330, that creating a response to the assessed risk. The auditor shall determine an overall response to the addressed risk of material misstatement due to fraud at the financial statement and the assertion level. Okay. Means, first of all, they were supposed to identify fraud risk, but they did not do that. Number two, once they are required to identify the fraud risk, they are required to, create a response in front of that fraud risk. Means they have to decide the audit procedures in order to address the fraud risk. Okay. In the presumption that there are risk of fraud in revenue recognition may be rebutted. Means you can say that there is no risk of fraud in revenue recognition, but for that, in order to conclude that, okay, there is no risk of material statement due to fraud relating to the revenue recognition in cases where there is a single or simple type of revenue transaction. Okay, you have to prove that why there is no risk of fraud. You should have substantial evidence in your hand, reasons in your hand where you can say, okay, I think the risk of fraud is not there in the revenue recognition because the revenue is a simple type of revenue. Simple single type of revenue. That's it. There are no chances of fraud in revenue recognition. Kind of cost plus entities. Okay, they bill based on whatever cost they have done during the year plus markup, and they bill that cost plus entities. So there is a lower risk of fraud in those type of entities. For example, leasehold revenue from a single unit rental property. Like, I have one property which I have given on lease. I'm getting leasehold rental from that, and that is the only revenue for me. So there is a simple recalculation can be done. So I will not count fraud risk in that particular area. But if there is a complex revenue structure, lack of controls, then there is a high probability of fraud risk. And there were lack of controls in the current example. On obtaining and understanding the entity and its environment, including internal controls, okay, it is a continuous and dynamic process gathered, updating and analyzing the information throughout the audit. Continuous and dynamic process of obtaining and understanding an entity and its environment. Remember in our Excel also, once we identified there is a fraud, there are fake invoices, we'll go back and we'll revise our risk. It's a continuous and dynamic process. We will not stop there. Now we are coming, what should be done? Okay. I'm talking about what auditors should do here. Kind of answer to second question. Now what auditors should do? Because it's a continuous and dynamic process, auditor is required to revise the risk assessment procedures. Okay. This is a current scenario which is given here. What is there in the question? Current scenario, I'll skip it from reading. Therefore, the auditor, while performing the risk assessment procedure, should consider the complexity and nature for determining the fraud risk in revenue recognition. Also, there were no adequate control addressing the risk of improper revenue recognition, the fraud. The audit team rebutted the fraud risk. This part is your answer to question number 1. What audit team did wrong? Moreover, the audit team should have recognized the fraud risks by identifying deficiencies of internal control over the revenue recognition process and should have treated the risk of improper revenue recognition as a significant risk. As per section 143.12, the auditor is required to report all the frauds identified during the course of audit involving amounts 1 CR and above 1 CR within the prescribed time frame to the central government. So now comes the reporting part as per section 143.12. Clear? So again, understand, I am quoting the provision over here. Relevant provision kind of from SA or responsibilities of auditor from SA. Same over here. From SA. I'm writing what is the requirement of the SA. Okay. And then I'm saying what auditor should do. Now. Okay. Same here. This also, this from here to here. So this part is something what auditor should do now. Okay, and this part from here till here, you can say what auditor has done wrong. Clear? Absolutely correct, Charu. We should assume always there is a fraud in revenue recognition, risk of fraud in revenue recognition. But if we say there is no risk, for that, we should have proper and appropriate evidence in our hand, reasoning in our hand, and we should have gathered appropriate and sufficient audit evidence to rebut the fraud risk, okay, in revenue recognition, and the same should be documented. Till that time, if you are not gathered the evidence, if you are not documented the evidence which proves that there is no risk of fraud in revenue recognition, you have to assume that there is a fraud risk. Clear? This was something asked. This is RTP 22. Again, this could have been asked in exam for 5 marks. Are you clear how to write answer in the exam? And if you focus on the keyword over here, keywords, if I talk about, okay, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement due to fraud at the financial statement and the assertion level. We have seen this particular multiple times because that is the crux of SA 315, the base that we need to understand. SA 330 says that auditor shall determine overall response to the to address the assessed risk of material misstatement due to fraud at the financial statement and assertion level. 330 talks about identifying and assessing. 330 talks about overall response to address. Once you identify and assess, now create an overall response. And instead of using the word risk, use the word risk of material misstatement due to fraud or error. Okay. Rather than using the word risk, I should use the word risk of material misstatement due to fraud or error. Okay. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? Today, we have covered a lot of practical questions on SA 315, SA 313, SA 330, understanding the entities, its environment, including internal controls. Then we covered some on SA 240. We saw one of the examples with respect to the inventory. Okay. So I tried to cover maximum practical questions as they were possible, but there are more questions available. You can refer more RTPs, you can refer more MTPs, suggested answers of previous past papers. Okay, you have MCQ booklets to cover. So I will say, read the study material, read it thoroughly for this chapter. Okay, number 2, go to the previous questions like MTP, RTP, suggested answers, mock test papers, MCQ booklets. Try to solve as much as you can to gather the understanding of the topic. There is no alternative of reading and practicing. Your self-reading, your self-practice is something which is required, and there is no alternative to that. Even I am here to explain you, but that with that you require your own reading and practicing. Clear? I hope you have got a good idea about these two topics today. If no further doubts, then I propose to close the session here, guys. Please revise. You have now, I think, a week's time before our lecture, resumes on next Monday. Please revise whatever we have done till now, because once we will shift to SA 500 series, 700 series, we will require the knowledge and base clear for SA 300 and 200 series. Okay. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you for participating. Please provide your feedback. Okay. I see you in the next lecture. Happy Diwali. Happy New Year. Session concluded, sir.